Welcome to a very special edition of the States Up Podcast. I'm your host, Brant Freeman. Now, typically in the podcast, we visit with student athletes at Texas State and tell their stories. But today, joining us is a longtime supporter of Texas State athletics and a very proud Texas State alum, Monica Malorgio Katz, joins us on the podcast now. Giving you some background about Monica, she graduated from Southwest Texas with a degree in economics back in 2000, later got her MBA in 2005. She also participated in club gymnastics while she was a student at Texas State, and has since then been a tremendous supporter of Bobcat athletics. Every sport you can name, she's there in attendance. And you certainly probably recognize her a lot, attending a lot of events at Texas State. Well, she joins us on the podcast now. So, Monica, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Brant. I'm super, super excited. This is definitely the highlight of my week. Any opportunity to talk about Texas State and Texas State athletics, I'm in. So. Well,
I mentioned your background, again, you're a proud alum of this great university. So tell me about your experience as a student at Texas State, then Southwest Texas.
Yeah, so I came here in 1998. I had been at University of Cincinnati for 2 years. I literally had an epiphany of a palm tree. My mother's side of the family is from Texas, so Texas was not random. I'd grown up in visiting my grandparents in South Texas, as well as South Padre Island. And my cousin had gone to UT, and I called her and said, I have this epiphany of a palm tree. And she said, you should go to UT. I said, all right. So I came down here, went to the campus, did the whole thing. And I called her back and said, I can't really explain it, but I'm just not feeling it. And she said, well, there's this little school that's like 20 minutes away called Southwest Texas. And I said, all right, I'll go check that out, and came to campus, and that was it. That was it. Came here in 1998. At the time, was already in business school, fell in love with economics, and so finished the degree here, graduated in 2000 with my undergrad, knowing that I did want to pursue further education, which I then did.
So since you graduated from Texas State and got the MBA, you've done so much with your career. You launched McNabb and Company Real Estate Services. You did so about 4 years after you got your MBA back in 2009. With what you were seeing in the real estate market at the time, what did you see in the San Marcos area that made you want to pursue that opportunity?
Yeah, so that's it all kind of goes hand in hand. I was pursuing my MBA. I had just started dabbling in real estate, not really knowing, which way I was going to go from an entrepreneurial mindset. I think I always knew that I wasn't really cut out to not be in charge, I guess. And I was getting my MBA. I was working with a professor at Texas State named Dr. Bell, who's amazing. He's now retired, but he was sort of the pioneer in the entrepreneurial program within McCoy. When you're getting your MBA, you kind of have two paths to pick. You can do a thesis, or you can work directly on a project with a professor. So I chose to work with Dr. Bell. And I said, why don't I do a business plan and do an entire business launching a real estate company in San Marcos, still debating what I was actually going to do. In that process, spent the semester doing all the things, all of the documentation, paperwork, and he would give me all of his notes. And I think it just kind of hit me one day, wait a minute, I could actually do this, because what the research was showing was that the average age of a realtor was about 55. Meanwhile, the average first-time home buyer was about 30. And so me being younger, having that business background, being a female, the current landscape at that time in the early 2000s in San Marcos was older male brokers. There were a few women, but I kind of just thought, okay, this is where I can be that niche. I can be that, I can directly work with those first time home buyers and sort of elevate the vibe and the feeling of an office. I often say that, if you went into any office in San Marcos in the late 90s, it kind of looked like a condo out of Port A. And I said, let's make this a little more, Sex in the City with pencil skirts and high heels and a bold logo. And so all of those things, I felt like there was something missing that I could achieve. Now, if we look at the market in 08, 09, which I launched in 09, the real estate market, if you remember, was terrible. It was crashing. It was falling apart. And that was another sort of thing where I said, wait, this is the time to get in. Everybody that I was telling, hey, I'm going to start a real estate company, they said, you're nuts, you're crazy. And I said, okay, that's how I know it's a good idea, because no one else in their right mind wants to do this. And if we know the market's going to turn, right? I have my business background. I understand business cycle. And I knew that once the market turned, everybody's going to jump in and get licensed and try to sell real estate, which is exactly what happened. And I thought, if I can get in now where the market's terrible, I can only go up, and I can build the, presence in the community. And so when the market does turn, I'll be ready. I'll have a team. And that is exactly what happened. And we'll have our 16th birthday, July 20th. So we've been able to stay afloat as an independent broker for 16 years in San Marcos. So very exciting.
Well, congratulations about the upcoming milestone for that. You've built a very successful business and industry, here in San Marcos, which has been just phenomenal to watch you, achieve, Monica, over the years. You've also come back to lecture at Texas State. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to Dr. Bell. When I was in that MBA process, he was real gung-ho that I should get a PhD in finance. There's not a lot of women. My background was economics. Economics is kind of a little joke in McCoy. It's the finance guys that make the money. And he was really, and I did consider it. I did consider it for a slight moment. But as I'm talking with Dr. Bell, he said, well, there's an opportunity for you to teach. Since you do have a master's, you're qualified. And I said, well, I've never taught a day in my life. And he said, well, Dr. Tanner, who's the professor I took over for, is, going to do more research. It's an elective, senior level elective. They need somebody. Why don't I just send you to the interview? You're an expert in your field. You have a broker, you have a real estate company, and the master's. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I go to the interview and meet with them. And, I said, I've never actually taught. However, I've been a coach for a really long time, as well as, at the time, single mom. So I kind of felt like, could I do it? Yes. Am I going to knock it out of the park first semester? I don't know. And, Tanner said, I think it'll be great. I'll give you every single thing I have for the first semester. So you're literally just doing what I taught. So that first semester was interesting. By the second, third semester, I had completely revamped it, still doing what was needed in the textbook, all of those things, but really brought in a whole real world as an adjunct. That's the concept, right? To bring in that real world side, told my war stories. So I wound up teaching for 18 semesters. And then what sort of happened, not on purpose, but luckily I was able to see the opportunity. I would start to have one day where I would talk about how do you get licensed in real estate? What's the process? That would be an elective day. It was kind of a gimme day. I figured most people would skip. Well, that day turned into the day that I had 100% attendance. So these kids were interested in taking that path as a career because that's what I preached. Instead of waiting till you're 55 and it's your fifth, career change, why don't you graduate from college and we treat it as a profession? That was my concept of my office. Well, pretty much all of my team that's still with me were my students. So I kind of basically wound up having my own farm league that I kind of realized, wait a minute, this is my pool. And obviously, they're Bobcats. So it was just absolutely perfect. And I have a lot of my team where my students, they graduated with a finance degree, came straight here and are still with me. I don't want to age anybody, but they're about 35 now. So, we've kind of grown up and built the company together. And, Texas State and Texas State athletics was a big part of that. When I would lecture, I would always talk about Bobcat Club and let them know about the Student Bobcat Club, which none of the students even knew that they could be in it. I started giving extra credit for going to games. They had to take a selfie with the scoreboard, so I knew that was the right game. And it could be any sport, it didn't have to be football, all sports, all athletics. I used to open that, that kind of spiel conversation with, who in here thinks that University of Texas is our competitor? First semester, nobody raised their hand except me. By the end of my 9 years, I had them raising their hand. Yes, they are our competitor. You should feel that way. We can compete with them, not just McCoy College of Business, you guys, but athletics. But we have to go to the games and, sure, but finance is 70-30 male, female. Okay. Most of the male students were going to the games. But I would tell them, even if you don't love football, if we succeed in football, which I know today's kind of a little special day with an announcement that may be coming out soon, that affects all of our degrees. It elevates all of us. It elevates our community. It elevates everything. And so I kind of spent 9 years preaching attendance to sporting events, preaching Bobcat Club. And, I guess I personally feel that the university, Dr. Bell, the way Fran opened his arms to me, Coach Fran was really where I stepped up as a donor, single female donor. I just, that relationship, not only is it my passion and my love, but business wise, it's also panned out better than I would have even imagined.
That's awesome, Monica. What a great story, about that. And, given everything that you've done, you've been recognized by, so many people with so many positions that you've held, many local organizations. You've been the president of the San Marcos Area Chamber of Commerce, president of the Full River Association of Realtors, president-elect for Texas State's Friends of Fine Arts, and the Bobcat Club Leadership Council. So what about the community, motivates you, and what should people know about the city of San Marcos and the community?
Well, I'm obviously a huge proponent of business, specifically small business. I think that's where the chamber comes in. I think that all of those sort of call them volunteer positions. There's an election and whatnot, but volunteer positions, the way that those things come about is that it takes time. Okay. You have a lot of great, amazing business people that don't have the time, and they have the resources to do other things to grow and build their business. Well, when I was starting out, I didn't have the resources. What I had was my time and my expertise and my knowledge. So the path of sort of volunteering for the community was the path that made the most sense for me to grow my business. So, that was sort of where that came from. But then you realize how important it is to make sure that we have people that genuinely believe in San Marcos, believe in protecting the river, believe in bringing good economy, recognize that the university is a huge economic engine, and not, spend time and energy trying to combat that. And so once I got involved, it was, I would say I'm not as involved now. This has been over the course of a 20-year career so far, but those things are priceless. The chamber, actually, we just started a new foundation, which is a true 501(c)(3). It's this great, amazing thing. Since I was a past president, I'm a founding member of it. So there are still things that need to happen. And you see it, all the way up state, national level. You want the best people to be involved in that. But normally the best people can't afford to spend that time. And so it was at the right point in my career that I could do that. And I continue to do that and continue to now make the time. San Marcos is, I think, absolutely amazing. I don't think there's very few people or places that can compete. When I travel, the first thing that happens when I'm coming back from the airport and I'm pulling on to exit 206 and coming down Ocarina and seeing the, sign for the stadium and then passing the stadium, there's just a sense of relief seeing the treetops. I mean, San Marcos is home. And I just sort of accidentally, I feel like, stumbled upon this gem and, keep doing it till the whole world knows our name, right?
Well said. Well said. People also recognize you, for your ownership and your constant involvement. And you mentioned like local businesses and some of the ones here in San Marcos, for example, Zelix, North Street, Dos Gatos. Why are those relationships important to you?
Yeah. So, I definitely believe in the, all, tides raise all ships, or however you say that phrase. I am a free market, advocate. Competition is good. So whether it's in my industry or another industry, elevating all small businesses in San Marcos and medium and large helps everybody. So no matter what, even if you're a competitor of mine directly, I still want to see that elevation. That, is how I connected with my now husband, who's also a business owner and entrepreneur. We obviously have very similar mindsets. Him and his brother own Zelix and North Street and Dos Gatos and Pi Society. And as we were, getting engaged and getting married, I kind of said, well, they're athletics is, looking for a venue. And, I feel like they're hitting me up because they want me to hit you up. And so we kind of started folding them into that. So it's been really nice to be able to host events and all the things that we've been able to do. And, no matter if it's at Zelix, I'm going to make sure I have anybody that wants to put swag in a bag, any business. And, vendors, this, that, the other. It's getting everybody together because that helps all of us. There doesn't need to be, you don't need to have this top and bottom. It can be all of us.
Now, there's a really big event coming up about a month from now, July 28th, Bobcats and Bubbles. Tell us a little bit more about that and how people in the community can get involved.
So Bobcats and Bubbles is kind of like my dream come true. Originally, we started it at Texas State when Brad Wright was here. I started, and this was before we were D1 and all that. I started, it was like a women's football clinic. I think the very first one was maybe 30 women, but it was the best night of our lives. And so each year I continue to do that and continue to grow that with each incoming head coach. And of course the head coaches have their own vision. Well, then we got, 2012 went to D1, Fran comes in, he and I hit it off because we're both Italian. So it's, it's just instant. He was, I have to say, a big part of he was my coach, in the world, in business, and how that relates to athletics. And he had done these things, of course, at other larger universities. So then when he came in, we kind of kicked it up another notch. It started getting bigger and bigger. Had a little off year when Spav was here because of COVID. And then, lo and behold, just the most amazing mesh of having Beth Dampus and Summer Kinney, having the first lady of the university and the first lady of football, who were all about this and really saw the vision even more than I had seen it. So now with their help, and I'd say this is maybe the 12th or 13th or 14th. I'd have to go back and see what year this is for this event. We've renamed it, rebranded it Bobcats and Bubbles, because that's really what it is. But it is phenomenal, and it is just for women. And I love football. I'm a crazy football fan. We could sit here and talk about stats and recruits, and I sometimes want to call plays. But most of my female friends don't know these things or understand them. Why I love it, don't have any answer for you. I do have 3 brothers. That's probably why. But what I kind of realized was that the women need a little more of a connection to get on board. And so doing these women only events where they get some private time with the coaches, we get to meet some of the players, we have Q&A, they get to get on the field, we get to see the locker room and just understand not just behind the scenes, but how important these coaches and staff are to these kids and how important, these kids are going to graduate. We know that the percentage of going to NFL, which is increasing at Texas State, but is still small. So at the end of the day, these are kids that are just going to be representatives of the university and have a special gift that we can help, fulfill, help sort of grow. And I think that, the event gets bigger and bigger every year because the women get that connection on the other side of, besides just the X's and O's. And it's just such a great event. It'll, you kind of really begin, like Lincoln Perry, for example, you feel like you get to know him. You see his number on the field. You can root for number 7, because you've met him and you know him. And I think that's the most important part to me, is saying just because you're female or, you don't really care too much about football, you can care about these kids and cheer on the team. And so anyway, it's probably my most favorite event. It's July 28th. You can get tickets on the Texas State Athletics site. It probably will sell out, so make sure you get tickets. We have a little shopping component now, so we have all the local boutiques come and they bring their game day gear, so you can get ready for the game. And then, you really do get a true sneak peek, especially now with the new facilities. We'll get to walk through all the brand new facilities and everything on July 28th.
I'm very much looking forward to that event. It's always a great annual one here at Texas State that you've helped spearhead. So great stuff there, Monica. Now, you mentioned your husband earlier, Seth, and the two of you, again, huge Texas State supporters. So what does a game day look like for you, and your family on Saturdays, whether it be a Bobcat football game, basketball game, baseball game? What is your game day experience like?
Well, I take it very seriously. So, I wake up, you'd almost think I'm competing. I was a gymnast my entire life. And I do think, being a competitive gymnast all the way through elite and then competing in college here at SWT at the time, it was club. It still is club. It's not NCAA, but those sort of mindset, determination, focus, knowing that you have to do the same drill over and over and over, to me, all of our sports, right? All these sports, to be an NCAA athlete, Division I in the United States, when there's, however many, schools, 125 schools for football and whatnot. These are the creme de la creme. These kids are so awesome and amazing. And I guess it's like I could put myself back there. And so, I wake up, I start getting ready. I don't mess around. I absolutely, like, if you're coming with me to the game and you're not there on time, I'm leaving you because I will not be late. I have my little ritual, want to be in my seat for the Star Spangled Banner. And I pretty much don't move from my seat for football in particular. I'm very superstitious. If I go inside and go to the restroom and we score, I may stay inside. I may be like, oh, I can't go back out yet. I've had my seats for 15 years or whatever. I have all the same people around me. We all have our superstitions, but it's the best day. I have all kinds of, certain bracelet I have to wear and earring and all the things. And I might as well have the black under the eye marks because I'm not messing around on game day. Everybody says, "Oh, let's have a drink before," and I'm sitting there. It's like, what's wrong? Why are you so serious? I'm like, because we're about to play. I'm getting ready. So I take it very seriously, and on the way to the stadium, I like to play. I'm from Texas. I think it's Big Thug the Plug or whatever. So I have my playlist as I'm pulling up to the stadium. So it's a whole ritual.
Well, that is awesome way to experience the games for sure, Monica. And anybody that goes to Texas State events, certainly recognizes you and your husband and see just how invested you are in the game. So no surprise there. Well, hey, Monica, it's been great getting a chance to visit with you.
Yeah.
I've known you for a long time. Getting to know a little bit more about your story, it has been really enlightening. To know your background and how you first got to San Marcos and to Texas State and everything you've been involved with since then. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and thank you as well for your continued support of Texas State.
Yes, beat them up.
You got it. Well, that's going to wrap up the States Up podcast for this week. So, yes, for Monica Katz, I'm Brain Freeman. She just did it, and I'm going to remind you to do it as always. Keep your states up, and we'll see you next time.